The Heritage Rough Rider, let's check it out. Single action revolvers take us back to the Old West, and it just really slows things down a bit. I mean, this design's been around since the late 1800s, and it's still very popular. A lot of it has to do with cowboy action shooting, but to be honest with you, there's something about just pulling that hammer back, hearing those clicks, and just firing off a round, slow but sure. Slow to load, slow to fire, but a lot of fun. It's a totally different experience than polymer striker fire pistols. But then you'd have your Colts, your Rugers, your Ubertis, Italian-made guns, and they're typically fairly expensive. We have the Rough Rider, and this is by Heritage Manufacturing, actually owned by Taurus. And it's just a very budget-priced single-action rimfire revolver. But what's funny is I've been seeing these for years, just sitting in the case. I mean, the prices are coming around just a little over $100, and I've just not really taken a second look at them. Here recently I've been doing some reviews on the Ruger Wrangler and the Super Wrangler, and it really had me looking at the Heritage. And so we're going to take a look at the Heritage, some of the differences between it and the Ruger, and some of the quality features. Is this worth the money? You know, even if you do spend for a budget gun, if you're buying junk, it's junk. So let's check it out. And we really appreciate Nate over at Gun Zone Deals for sending the Heritage Rough Rider for this review. Again, I've been really looking for one, and we really appreciate their help. Well, the Heritage Rough Rider. I've been as curious about this single action revolver as anybody. I've seen them all along, you know, in different gun shops. The price is really cheap, and I just figured it's just a cheap single action revolver. I've never even handled one. So this was really a treat for me. But again, because we've been doing a lot with the Wrangler series from Ruger, you know, it just made sense to bring this in, and we're going to do a full comparison with these two. We're going to do a light comparison coming up, but mainly we're going to focus on the Heritage. This is one of the 22 long rifle, 22 Magnum cylinder versions. They do make it in just a 22, and guys, honestly, they make it in a huge array of different finishes, grips, barrel lengths. This is the 6.5 inch barrel, but it goes all the way down to 3.5 inch with a bird head grip, and all the way out to a 16 inch barrel for a rifle. I mean, Heritage has got an extensive line of revolvers. And then you can get other grips to put on here. You can get engraved cylinders, different color cylinders. In fact, you can buy just the cylinder to go with your standard 22 and add a 22 Magnum cylinder. And they're very reasonable. One of the big things about this handgun is that it starts out at about $120 with just 22. And so again, that led me to kind of look at it sideways. But I just really wanted to check it out. One of the things about a 22 single action is they're very simple. And so that's one of the reasons why, you know, you can make these for a little bit less than you can a double action, single action revolver. So first thing let's do is go ahead and open up our loading gate, and we're going to double click the hammer, and then we can turn the cylinder. And you can see that the gun is unloaded. And so we're going to really look at the action in just a minute. It's actually got a pretty cool action to it. And guys, this is a budget firearm. And so this is not going to be a Colt single action, and it's not going to be a Ruger single six. But this is for taking it out and plinking and playing around with it. You know, we're going to see what kind of performance we get out of this little guy. So far, you know, I really liked it. And so one of the things about it, the cylinders are a blued steel, and, you know, the 22 Magnum is non-fluted. It does have 22 Magnum marked on it right here, 22 WMR. And then on the 22 cylinder, it is fluted, and then it has 22 long rifle marked on it. Honestly, you can't put a 22 Magnum in a 22 long rifle cylinder. And so that's one of the things that will keep you from putting the 22 Magnum in the wrong place. Now this one is a 6-shot. They do also make a 9-shot revolver as well. But we have the 22 long rifle and 22 Magnum, and we'll talk about some of the benefits of both of those calibers as well. Now the barrel's all steel, 6.5 inches. It's not lined. It is a full barrel, and it's actually crowned at the end, which is going to lend a decent accuracy as far as hitting that muzzle. Just a fixed front sight blade post. Here at the back, we just have that standard kind of groove for the back sight with a little notch here at the back. And the sights are just basic. Now there are 4 clicks. The first one is your safety notch, and this is going to take the hammer off the firing pin. The second notch, that is your loading notch, and so when you open up the loading gate, you can actually spin the cylinder. And one thing I like is that little detent in there, because it hesitates the cylinder so you can load it and not go past it. So it makes it really easy to load these without going too far, and then having to go all the way around if you miss one. And then we have the third click, which Heritage says is really no consequence to the shooter. That fourth click is where it's fully cocked. So it has those 4 clicks, and man, I love the way that sounds. The hammer has some nice checkering on the end, and you're going to be cocking this because it is a single action revolver. And what that means is you can't actuate the hammer with the trigger. You have to actually bring the hammer back, and then the hammer trips the sear, and it drops the hammer into the firing position. The frame is a zinc alloy, and it comes in 2 pieces, which is typical for your single action revolvers. And then we have the piece at the back, and I believe this is aluminum, an aluminum alloy. The Coco Bolo grips, very well done, and you can get a number of different grips. I chose this just because it has more of that traditional look, but man, I was really amazed at how many different grip choices they have on their website. The trigger is steel, the safety is steel, and the loading gate is steel. Now this safety is something that's really unusual on a single action revolver. And so what you'll notice is it's not really a safety, it's a firing pin block. We're going to disengage our safety. So when we drop it, you can see this goes flat and it allows the hammer to hit the firing pin. When we bring this up, it blocks the action of the firing pin. And so this gives you safety. One of the things I will warn you about when you're taking this to the range is if you pull the trigger, it's not going to quite meet the firing pin. And so sometimes you forget to disengage that safety. For a safety, which I'm not a real big fan of, but for a safety, bringing that back is a lot easier than maybe a crossbolt safety or something down here. And to me, it kind of blends in with the frame. So really, for a safety, I feel like that's a pretty decent option. Now, if we open up our loading gate, we bring it to that second notch. Now we can turn the cylinder, and then you can take your ejector rod, and it's on a spring, and you push that through. And this just knocks your shells out. One thing we did notice that when shooting 22 Magnum, it did have a little trouble getting the shells all the way out. They're hot, they've already fired, and they swell just a little bit in the cylinder, which is typical. And so it doesn't allow for it to go all the way out every time. But it comes out pretty much, you just have to pull it out. But the 22 long rifle popped out really easily. Now here's your base pin and your base pin detent. And so you press this and then just pull out your base pin. And this holds your cylinder into place. Now it comes all the way out. And then open up your loading gate and the cylinder just pops right out. And then you can change it to the 22 Magnum. You want these teeth to be facing the back toward your grip. Drop it in there. And you're going to want to have to line it up just a little bit once you put the base pin back in. But when you put the base pin in, you have to depress that detent to get it to go in. And it's a little bit more difficult behind the camera. There it goes, and actually it was lined up. And then close my loading gate. And so now I'm ready for .22 Magnum. Now Ruger introduced their Wrangler series a couple of years ago. Great pistol, more of a budget-friendly price. We've done a couple of reviews on the original Wrangler and the Super Wrangler. The big difference with the Super Wrangler is it does have the option of having a .22 Magnum cylinder and your .22 long rifle. It is non-fluted on the .22. One thing I like about the Super Wrangler is it has the adjustable sights. And so we have a rear adjustable sight, and we have this front post that you can take off if you want something different. And that's really a big plus for this pistol. But overall, it's about a 5.5-inch barrel, but they do make different sizes, or they have them coming up. And it just has your standard polymer or plastic type grips, but these are actually really good. I mean, they have some really nice texturing. It is Cerakoted on all the parts except for the cylinder. And so one of the things about the Heritage is that it has a blued barrel. And so that gives it a little more of an advantage, honestly, as far as the finish and looking more traditional. You can also get this in a bronze finish and a silver finish, and it has the black accents throughout. One thing about the Super Wrangler or the regular Wrangler is it will take your standard single 6 grips, so you can put a lot of different grips on here as well. But one thing I really love about the Super Wrangler is I can just open up my loading gate and the cylinder just freely spins. And it goes both ways. So it's really easy to be able to load it without having to mess with the hammer. And so that's just one advantage of the Ruger. The fit and finish, honestly, is a little bit better. But what I really like is that this still comes in at a very budget price compared to the Ruger Wrangler. So it's just a matter of choices. And honestly, I think that the Heritage line is what inspired Ruger to come in with a more budget-friendly single-action revolver. Now, if you notice, the bluing on the steel is very well done. On the cylinders, it's really nice cold blue. When you get into the frame, being a Zamac frame or a zinc alloy, you know, it's coated, probably has a black oxide finish on it, and so it doesn't really give you that bluing, that rich, deep blue. And that's just part of the process to make this more affordable. And so you'll notice also, though, that here on the back it's a lot bluer, and that's the reason why I think that may be aluminum or just a coating to make that just a really nice finish. And you'll find this on a lot of your Ruger revolvers, even your Blackhawks. But here, you know, it's got just a little bit of a matte kind of finish to it, and it gives it a little bit of a cheaper look. And so, you know, but again, guys, this is a plinker. It's only $119. Again, I think it's $158 for, you know, the one with the extra cylinder. Now, as far as trigger pull, it is a single action again, so we have to pull the hammer back into the rear position. And then we're going to just, it's a pretty crisp break. There's hardly any take up whatsoever. Let's see if we can try that again. Yeah, there's no take up. It just hits the wall and it trips the sear. Let's check the trigger pull weight with our Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells. 1 pound, 7.3 ounces. 1 pound, 12.9 ounces. Man, that's pretty light. But one thing about a single action revolver is you do have to cock the hammer to fire it. And you know, it was funny because when I was shooting it, I didn't feel like I was anticipating or pulling the trigger before I was ready. Because it has a pretty decent wall that kind of rests, and then the trigger just disengages the sear. So, you know, it is light, but yet it's not like, it doesn't seem to be a hair trigger. Man, that's really smooth. And when it comes to .22 Magnum, it is a little bit thicker. The diameter is a little bit more increased than your .22 long rifle. And that's on purpose. Here we have the .22 Magnum cylinder, and of course you can see it drops in really easily. The .22 long rifle will actually fit in the .22 Magnum, but it can damage the chambering, and so you want to be careful because, you know, it has a little more area to expand. When it comes to the .22 long rifle chamber, the .22 Magnum just will not fit. It won't go in. And that's really where your danger is. .22s typically should not be dry fired. There are some semi-automatics that have been designed to be able to do that, but it hits the rim of the case and it kind of is offset, so it can damage your firing pin. So snap caps are really a great option, but also wall anchors. If you can get the right size, you know, it gives you that protection where it hits that plastic, and it's a cheap way to do it. You just need to make sure it's the correct size to fit into it. The Heritage Rough Rider, 2 pounds. Now, we really appreciate Fiocchi for sponsoring the ammunition. We do have some Federal and 22 Magnum. I just didn't have the Fiocchi in it. And we're using just standard velocity. Again, just pop that cylinder, bring it to the second click. I like how this thing just stops. There's a detent in here that keeps it from going around unless you just really mean to push it. It's one of the things about single action sometimes it's a pain is you go too far. So I really like the way this thing loads. And again, you know, it's slow to load, but man, it's satisfying. Guys, the Rough Rider so far, I mean, we have put a lot of rounds through it. It's just solid. It's a 22 long rifle and 22 Magnum, so there's not a lot of recoil, but it's still solidly built for what it is. And I'm not sure how they come up with the price for this because it's really a nice quality gun. I love the 4 clicks. Of course, you know, you're 22 and you got 22 Magnum. The sights definitely are pretty, you know, just rudimentary. They're straightforward. But I like that nice grip, and again, you can get all kind of different ones for it. But there's a number of ways to shoot it, which we've kind of demonstrated. But one thing is typically most people just pull it out, pull the hammer back, fire the round. You want to go a little faster? I mean, that makes it pretty fast. Overall, it's just a soft shooting little gun, but it doesn't feel cheap. And that's the one thing that I've always thought, is when I looked at them, I thought this is cheap. One thing you want to make sure though is if you put that safety on, sometimes you'll forget to bring it down. And the safety is a little different for sure. I mean, it's something that you don't usually see, but I think they've incorporated it well in this pistol. But I like the hammer. It has some nice texturing to the back, so it's really easy to bring out. And then if you want to change this out to 22 Magnum, you just pull out your base pin, bring your cylinder right out. Here we got a 22 Magnum cylinder. And you know, it's always just a little bit of fitting when you're putting it in, just to line up that hole with the base pin. Goes right in, it's locked in. But with the 22 Magnum, it's mainly the noise. The recoil isn't that much different. I mean, it is a little bit more, you can tell you're shooting it, but really, again, of course, shooting it one-handed makes it easy, really soft to shoot, but the 22 Magnum gives you a better ballistic caliber. And so you're going to be able to hunt more. I mean, it could be used for self-defense. So this really gives it for 120 bucks for the standard, and then with the extra cylinder, you know, around $160. Hard to beat. When you have an inexpensive firearm, you know, you can tell it. I mean, it feels inexpensive, it feels cheap. You can tell where they've cut the corners. But with this, I'm actually impressed with the quality of this gun. It's pretty sweet for the money. Even not for the money, it's a pretty sweet option. There we have the 22 Magnum, and it's the CCI Maxi Mag. It's going 1,875 feet per second. We have here a CCI Mini Mag, and it's going 1,235 feet per second. So that's about 640 more feet per second with the 22 Magnum. And then we have some Fiocchi lead round nose, One thing about 22 is there are a bazillion different choices, different type ammos out there, subsonic, you name it. And in a revolver, it's fine because you're not worrying about reliability, because you are firing single action, and the main thing is you just want good quality ammo. But this is the Fiocchi lead round nose. All of these are 40 grain. And then we have the CCI shot shells, and it's in 22, great for pest control. And again, you don't have to worry about functioning the revolver. It will function pretty much no matter what kind of quality ammo you put in it. MSRP on the Heritage Rough Rider in this configuration with the 22 Magnum cylinder. It retails for $229.99. On Guns on Deals, it's $158.99. So just a fantastic price for a 2 caliber single action little revolver. When it comes to just the 22, they're running about $120. Has a lot to do with the different choices you make with barrel length and with the grips, but very reasonable in price. But as a comparison, something like a Ruger Wrangler, now the Super Wrangler I haven't gotten a price on because it just came out. But the standard Ruger with the same type sights, pretty much very similar to this handgun, is running about $186. So what are some pros and cons of the Heritage Rough Rider? Price is definitely a huge pro. Tons of different grip choices, barrel lengths, finishes. I mean, there's just a lot that they offer. One thing that I really thought was unique is they offer an extra cylinder, and it's just, they'll send it to you and you can put it directly into your single action revolver without it being timed. And that's one thing that is a danger for just sending a cylinder. So I've just seen them on the website. They have some beautifully engraved ones. I even thought about getting one. But you can add a lot to this, and you've paid a very reasonable price for the firearm overall. 22 Magnum, great for hunting, even capable of self-defense. 22 long rifle, you can use for self-defense, but it's not near as optimal as most of your self-defense calibers. When you're getting into 22 Magnum, it just gives you a lot more ballistic capability, and the recoil is very mild. First-time shooters, a camp gun, you're not worried about it because it's fairly inexpensive. Going out in the woods and doing things with a 22, this just makes it a great option. Some of the cons. First off, is the safety. I'm not a big fan of having a safety on here, but it does block the hammer, and it does give you a safety, and I like the way they've integrated it into the frame. But it's still a safety, and I'm just not a big fan of that, but if they're going to add one, that's probably the best place to put it. One thing I do like, though, is beside the clicks, is bringing it to that half-cock position, or that loading position. The cylinder does move, and it has that detent to stop it, and so it keeps it from going around. It's a very positive click. It's a very sound little revolver, especially for the price, which is surprising. I like the hammer spur. It's got a nice texturing on it. The grips are beautiful. The zinc alloy frame, the finish on it is not the best, and that's just because of the properties of the zinc. And so, it's just one of those things that allows you to have a low-priced single action revolver, pretty much. Back here, it's a lot better or more well finished. And I'm not sure if this is zinc alloy or not. According to the website, I think it is, but they put a coating on it. And I like that smoother coating. I would like it to be on this area right here at the top of the frame. I think it would add a lot to it. The sights, they're just your standard single action sights and more traditional than your adjustable sights on the Super Wrangler. And so that's not really a pro or a con, it's just what you like. Overall, I think for the price, this is a great option. And if you want something just inexpensive to take out and plink, if you just kind of want to get into single actions just to see what they're all about, I think this is a great one to start with. So guys, I highly recommend having a 22 single action revolver. They're a lot of fun. They have a lot of purposes. Great for target shooting, plinking, but also pest control and for hunting. And again, it just slows things down a bit. And with 22 long rifle, cheap to shoot, easy report, great to take kids out to shoot. It's just slow to load, slow to fire, but man, there's something really satisfying about a single action revolver. Plus, I get to wear my cowboy hat. And we really appreciate the guys over at Guns on Deals for sending the Heritage Rough Rider for this review. Those guys really help us out a lot to bring a lot of cool guns to you guys. Because it's all about being cool. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America, long live the Republic. Guys, the Rough Rider, it's holding up to rough conditions. Oh man, this is not rough conditions. Cimarron's different guns that are actually fairly, one of the big things is that it's just good, not a lot. Just has that really nice 4-click. I mean, it just, Heritage Rough Rider for this review and to give me something to take to the range. That sounded just goofy. Is that it's just, okay, I don't want to say this. I don't know what I'm saying. These birds are so loud.